The crowd pushed forward, desperate to see him. Some climbed walls, others smashed doors, just to catch a glimpse of the tall, dark-skinned stranger. Nobunaga himself doubted it was real. He ordered the man scrubbed, certain the color would wash away. But it didn't. That man was Yasuke. This is the story of the African who walked into feudal Japan and rose to stand at the side of its most feared warlord. His journey tested every border, between foreigner and samurai, servant and brother-in-arms, and what he chose would echo for centuries. The late 1500s were an age of chaos in Japan. Warlords fought for land and power. Alliances shifted with every season. Portuguese traders arrived with muskets. Jesuit missionaries followed, preaching their faith. And in the middle of it all stood Oda Nobunaga, ruthless, ambitious, feared. He burned temples, crushed clans, and carved a bloody path toward unifying Japan. Into this world came a man no one expected. His skin black as coal, his presence impossible to ignore. His name would become legend, Yasuke. We don't know exactly where he was born. Most believe somewhere in East Africa, Mozambique, Sudan, or Ethiopia. By then, the coast was scarred by war and Portuguese forts. People were carried across oceans as soldiers, servants, or slaves. Whether Yasuke was born free or taken, history doesn't say. What we do know is that he traveled with a Jesuit, Alessandro Valignano, who oversaw missions across Asia. Letters describe Yasuke not only as an attendant, but as a guard. Strong, disciplined, trusted. By the time he reached Japan in 1579, he had survived years of suspicion and hardship. That kind of life teaches patience. It teaches you to stay calm when every eye is on you, to hold steady when curiosity turns to hostility. Yasuke had learned all this long before he reached Japan, and it would matter when he stepped into Nobunaga's world. Kyoto, 1581. The city was full of noise, but a single rumor silenced it. Crowds poured into the streets to see the man whose skin was darker than ink. People pressed against gates until wood splintered. Some forced their way into houses until walls cracked. Children pointed. Adults whispered. To many, he looked less like a man than a ghost stepped into daylight. Nobunaga heard the stories and demanded to see him. The Jesuits brought Yasuke to his court. At first, Nobunaga believed his skin had been painted. He ordered Yasuke scrubbed in front of him. Water poured, cloths rubbed, but the color never changed. Nobunaga laughed, startled, maybe even impressed. That laugh changed everything. Nobunaga, who valued talent over birth, decided not to dismiss the stranger as a curiosity. It was Nobunaga who bestowed a Japanese name upon him, Yasuke, granting a stipend, a house, and most important, the right to carry a sword. In Japan then, a sword was not decoration, it was identity. It marked a man as samurai, but with the gift came weight. Yasuke now lived in Nobunaga's household, where every man measured the other. Some tested him with stares, others with cold silence. A foreigner with a sword was more than unusual. It was a challenge. Still, Yasuke endured. Each day was a test. When people stared, he stayed calm. When tested, he answered with discipline. When ordered, he obeyed without arrogance. Slowly, he forced others to see him not as spectacle, but as warrior. Some records say he dined with Nobunaga, an honor reserved for trusted men. Others place him at military inspections, standing among seasoned fighters. These details matter. Yasuke was no longer standing at the edge of the room. He was in the center, beside the man who terrified half of Japan and commanded the other half. In May 1582, Nobunaga crushed the Takeda clan, one of his strongest rivals. To mark it, he inspected his troops and his newly claimed lands. Yasuke rode with him. For soldiers raised on tradition, the sight of a foreign warrior at the warlord's side was a shock. Back in Nobunaga's residence, resentment deepened. Nobunaga had always rewarded talent over blood. He raised low-born soldiers, humbled proud families, and welcomed Jesuits when it suited him. Each act broke tradition. Each act bred enemies. Yasuke's presence was one more spark. Imagine being a retainer whose family had served Nobunaga for generations, and now watching a foreigner sit at your lord's table. Nobunaga was known to share meals with Yasuke. In Japan's rigid world, that was not just unusual, it was a statement. Some muttered that Nobunaga had gone too far. Others swallowed their anger. But every sideways glance reminded Yasuke of the weight he carried. By June 1582, Nobunaga's ambition was at its peak. He dreamed not only of victory, but of unifying all of Japan. He believed his commanders loyal. He believed his position secure. He was wrong. One of his generals, Akechi Mitsuhide, was already marching with betrayal in his heart. That night, Nobunaga lodged at the temple of Honno-ji with only a small guard. Yasuke was with him. The attack began with fire. Flames raced up wooden beams, smoke flooding corridors never built for war. Then came the thunder of matchlocks. The air turned choking, every breath filled with ash and fear. Attendants tried to defend their lord, but they were hopelessly outnumbered. Yasuke drew his sword and stood where he had always stood, at Nobunaga's side. Nobunaga understood quickly. There was no escape. To be captured meant humiliation. His body paraded as a trophy of betrayal. For him, that was worse than death. So he chose seppuku, ending his life before Mitsuhide's men could take it. Flames rose higher, consuming the temple, and with it, the last breath of his dream to unify Japan. For Yasuke, loyalty did not end with Nobunaga's death. He fought on, defending Nobunaga's heir, Nobutada, at Nijo Castle. But again, Mitsuhide's forces closed in. The defenders tried to hold the gates, but numbers crush courage. Nobutada, like his father, chose suicide over capture. Yasuke had stood beside two men whose deaths shook the future of Japan. And still he did not flee. Here, history blurs with legend. Some said Yasuke fought with the strength of 10, cutting down soldiers in a desperate stand. Others whispered he tried to carry Nobunaga's head, to keep it from being displayed. Some claimed he spoke fluent Japanese by then, shouting orders in battle. These are rumors, not records. But they show one truth. Yasuke's presence that day was unforgettable. When the fighting ended, Yasuke was still alive, but in enemy hands. Mitsuhide made a choice stranger than betrayal itself. He did not execute the foreign warrior. Instead, he sent him back to the Jesuits. His reason was cold. Yasuke, he said, was not Japanese, and therefore his life was not worth taking. In a single sentence, Yasuke's sword, his loyalty, his place at Nobunaga's side, all were dismissed. Jesuit letters confirm he returned to them. Months later, they wrote of their relief that he was alive. After that, the record falls silent. The man who once stood in a burning temple at Nobunaga's side disappears from history, leaving only questions. The fall of Nobunaga shook Japan like an earthquake. Kyoto became a city of whispers. Mitsuhide claimed power, but his triumph lasted only days. Toyotomi Hideyoshi marched back with stunning speed. At Yamazaki, Mitsuhide was crushed, hunted down, and killed before he could even claim a throne. Nobunaga's dream of unity did not die. It simply passed to other hands. For Yasuke, the aftermath was quieter but final. Stripped of role and purpose, he faded from sight. Did he remain in Jesuit service, living out his days in obscurity? Did he die in Japan, forgotten by new lords? Did he ever return to his homeland? No one knows. But his story did not vanish. In the centuries that followed, tales of the African samurai lingered. Folding screens and painted scrolls show a dark-skinned warrior among Nobunaga's men, though scholars debate if they truly depict him. In popular memory, his strength grew larger, his loyalty unshakable. He became not only a man but a symbol, proof that identity could cross borders, that loyalty could outlast origin. In modern times, Yasuke has returned in books, anime, and films. His name has grown into legend, far bigger than the fragments of fact we hold. What is certain is this: Yasuke was at Honno-ji, standing in the fire beside Oda Nobunaga. That alone is enough to carry his name across 4 centuries. Picture him, the outsider who did not run when his lord fell, the foreign warrior who held his ground as the walls burned around him. He had no reason to stay, no promise of safety, no future guaranteed. Yet he stayed. He never asked to be a symbol. He never claimed he belonged. He simply chose loyalty when it mattered most. And that is why his story has never faded. Where the record falls silent, legend takes over. But behind both is still the same man, a stranger in a strange land, who stood firm when fire and betrayal gave him every reason to walk away.